Hi, everyone. Thank you so
Hi.
much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents and why they like being in Flagler County and why they like having their business in Flagler County. So I'm super excited to finally bring on my guest, Dr. Peggy or Dr. Margaret Lessig. We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm so glad that we were able to finally get some time on the book. I think it's going to be really fun today.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Like I said, I know Dr. Peggy pretty well. We've been working together for I think at least a month or two by now, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy to think about. But I'll let you kind of explain kind of cliff notes of what you do because I think you do it best. I think I could kind of, but so why don't you tell a little bit about Ocean Shore Aesthetics and Wellness really quick?
Okay, so I am actually a retired dentist. I don't practice clinical dentistry anymore. I focus more on facial aesthetics, so non-surgical medical grade facial aesthetics and wellness.
Perfect. Yeah, making people feel good, look good, all of those
Mhm.
amazing things. Um, so it's kind of an interesting story. I remember you had told me on how you found Flagler. So why don't you share just a little bit on how you found Flagler and what made you want to stay in Flagler?
So we had settled in the Jacksonville area. My husband and I were both in the Navy. We got out of the Navy in 1994, and I always had my dream of having my own private dental office since I was a child, actually. And I actually looked into Palm Coast back in the early 90s, but it wasn't quite ready to start up a practice from scratch. And we were living in Fleming Island, and I saw the big boom of what was happening there. And I said, you know what, this is where I need to start my practice. And I practiced up there for 25 years and sold a business about 5 years ago because we had actually purchased some land down here about 20 years ago and sat on it thinking it'd be our retirement. And, Palm Coast was always Flagler, it was always in my mind. And like I said, just changes in, my career was kind of time to hang up the drill and focus on the other aspect of my practice, which was the facial aesthetics. And we decided to build our house here about 9 years ago and, decided to move here full time about a year and a half ago. So
That's so
just
cool.
absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those like happens that's like right good timing at the right time.
Yeah.
Which is it's so cool to hear that I think that's happened with so many people in Flagler when I've talked to them. It's like, oh yeah, I've like either been looking into Florida for a while, but like the perfect house showed up or the perfect lot or something like that. And it's at the
Mhm.
right time they were looking. I'm like, that's so cool to hear all the different stories. Um, so like you said, you used to be a professional dentist and now you've moved on to more wellness and aesthetics. So why don't you share just a little bit on that transition and what has that been like for you?
So in my dental practice, I actually did a lot of cosmetic dentistry and like full mouth reconstructions. And you always take pictures of you before and after. So
Mhm.
when I would put the pictures up on the computer screen, I'd look and go, wow, the teeth look really good, but the frame is messed up. So I got into evening out lips with fillers, Botox, things like that, and then filling in the lines. And because if I was going to do a full smile design, I was not giving my patients the full expectation if I did not fix this. So then it became more of a demand in my practice. So I started doing more and expanding my services. So it went from here to here to here to here. And so I've been doing facial aesthetics for about 20 years now, and I keep learning and I keep adding on services. And, as a dentist, the advantage is this is my world. I know the head and neck anatomy like no other. And I study people all the time. I love anatomy. I love studying people's muscle motion and then looking at, the quality of their skin. So the facial aesthetics is one side, the wellness side. I also still, as a dentist, I get into my dentist mode as I also help people with TMJ issues and clenching
Mhm.
and grinding and migraines. So I do therapeutic Botox to calm the muscles down, and also, for trigger point therapy. And I also can do radio frequency to reduce inflammation in the joint. And I still go ahead and I do a full head and neck exam. And I kind of guide people to number one, what's the diagnosis? Is it structural or muscle? And then try to point them in the right direction. As I'm not working on teeth to correct the bite to help the joint, I need to refer them to the appropriate person to do that. But I help them to kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah, I that's so cool. I know a few people that, in our BNI who have done the TMJ, is that what it's called? And I know they loved it. They were just raving about it. So that's just one of the many hats that you wear. I mean, I know there's just so much that you can do. We've talked about it, and there's such an ex I think it's in my closet, but I have the list of the services and it's like the entire page. I'm like, that is so cool that you're able to do so many things. And like you're saying, you don't it's not like you have 1,000,010 items you use for it. It's just that you're able to do it in different ways to help different people, and everyone definitely has a need. So I think that's so
Right.
cool. Um, how have you liked being in the Flagler community and building your practice, down here as opposed to maybe Jacksonville or somewhere else?
Well, it was in my practice in the Jacksonville area, since I had been there and I was in the community for so long, I had a very established practice. So
Hmm.
the relationship with the patients was already there, so it was easy to introduce things.
Right,
Here, excuse me, I'm starting out from scratch again. So
right.
it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I am getting in there in the community. I love Flagler Beach, where I can actually ride my bike to the beach, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so for me, again, the new challenge is starting a new business, even
Hmm.
though I've been doing this type of work for so long. Just connecting with the community, like you said, BNI. We recently joined the Elks, the Professional Women Flagler, Bowl
Hmm.
Ladies. So any networking, group community, I investigate and see if it's a good fit. I'd like to give back to the community. I'm still on the board of BASCA, which up in Orange Park, which is an organization founded by families of individuals with intellectual or physical
Hmm.
mental disabilities. And I've been on the board for 10 years. I took a break. I'm back on the board. So we help adults with intellectual and physical differences to help them have a productive life. So I want to connect with a similar organization down here.
Mm,
My heart is with the military and special needs. And
mm.
that's why we joined the Elks, because they do things with both of those communities.
Right. That's so cool. I think a really like before we were had hit recording, we were talking about some of the other networking events because we met at so many. I think we met at most of the ones that you
Yeah,
mentioned, which is so funny. But it's definitely not one of those things where you should definitely try out and see if it's a good fit, but I think it's impossible to know within just 1 or 2 visits. Sometimes you kinda gotta ease in and
absolutely.
really allow yourself to be introduced to these people that are at the event. And maybe sometimes you can just tell it's not a good fit, and sometimes that's just how it
Mhm.
is. But I think a lot of the times you have to allow yourself, like I know for me especially, I had been to networking events here and there for a while, but it wasn't until kind of recently where I was going more consistently that people were recognizing me, and then it
Right,
just became so much more easier to have conversations with people because it wasn't just like people's faces I've never seen before ever in my life. It's like, oh, I think I've seen you a few times within the past
mhm.
few months. So it definitely makes it easier. And I think that's a really big thing you have to keep in mind when
Right.
you
And
have to integrate into a community for the first time again.
right. And with a lot of these organizations, pretty much everything, it's what you put into it
Right.
is what you will, I'd say get out of it, but
Right.
and you have to put yourself out there. You have to kind of be an extrovert. You can't just sit there in the corner. So you really,
Right.
it's interesting because early in my career, it was like way back in the day. It was hard. And I'm not an introvert, but as a dentist, hey, we have a captive audience. You're sitting there with your mouth full and you can't talk back. So it's hard to go into a room and say, hey, I'm so and so, but I'm actually a lot better with that now. And
Yeah,
uh,
I can
it's
tell.
just time, age, and experience.
Right. It's just, getting comfortable with what you want to talk about yourself as well. That's a hard thing. I mean, for me, like I'm an extrovert, so I have this fear that I talk too much, especially at networking events when you don't know these people. You don't want to just info dump on all of the things that
Right.
you are and can do to these people who don't know you. It's like that's not necessarily a way to build
Right.
connection. You have to talk to them and learn about them, and then they can learn about you in a reciprocal manner that makes sense to the both of you. So that's something I've had to learn with like, okay, you don't want to talk too much, but then you don't want to talk at all. You want to
Right.
have a connection. So
Well, the old
it's just
adage,
it's
is be interested, not interesting.
right. Yeah. But it's
Sometimes you have
like
to
you
have that one
said,
person on
you
your shoulder telling you that.
but like you said, it's something you can only learn with experience. So you'll never go into your a networking meeting being 100% perfect all the time. It's
Right.
really about building the connections and what you want to get out of it and what you can bring to the group. So
True.
yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Peggy, for
Yeah.
coming on and sharing a few minutes. I really appreciate it. Just for anyone who's listening and might be interested in learning a little bit more about you and your products and what you can help them with, what is the best way they can find or contact you?
You can go to my website, oceanshoreaesthetics.com. That's aesthetics with an A. And just check out my services in a little bit. And if you ever want to have a consultation or just chat or kind of ask those questions, I'm a one-woman operation, so it's very casual, and you can ask any questions. And I love to explain all these different things and just explain combination treatment and how all these things together can make you the best you.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely make sure I link the website in the description. It's a really beautiful website. We've gone over it a few times. It's really awesome. So again, thank you, Dr. Peggy, for coming on and sharing a few minutes of your time. And thank you to everyone who's listening. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Macy. Bye. Have a great day.